I was showing one of my patients how to stretch their pecs, which if you don't know are the muscles in your chest, in a doorway, which is sort of the way everybody would show you, or one side or the doorway, but I was showing in a doorway like this. And I said, I'll send you a PDF with directions showing exactly how to do that. And he actually came back the next appointment and said, the way you're showing it in the PDF is different from what you showed me in the office. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, no, your arms are bent forward. And I was like, no, they're not. And sure enough, I look in my book and my arms are bent forward. And I told him, I was like, I don't know why I'm doing that. I'd completely forgotten why. In here, I decided after a lot of thought, that it was better to have my arms actually rotated forward while I was doing a pectoralis stretch, which is unusual. And I decided after looking at my notes, I was like, actually, yeah, I still think that is a better way to do it for what I'm recommending it for, which is to isolate the pec, and I'm going to explain it, and to do it safely without other muscles interfering. And just so you know, I'm going to explain that right now. And when we look at other stretches, like here, if we go to the ACE website, they're going to have just your typical, this is the way everybody shows it. Arms straight out, and this makes sense. That's a little different. That's kind of a little different too, but usually you're going to get something like this, one side or both sides at once. We found also this lady doing it in a doorway, a million things. Sometimes it's one arm. And one of the reasons I like, first of all, using a doorway is because we can, first of all, do both at once, but that's not the point. You can do one at a time. But you can see here, Dr. Jacqueline here, you can sort of see how potentially you could rotate your torso. And what I'm trying to do is avoid rotating the torso and doing both sides at once. The downside of that is that your shoulder blades can come back and pinch together, which if you're getting that far, I think is a good thing. But you do get a little bit more range of motion, and potentially your shoulder blade can come back and stretch a little bit more. But there was a reason I decided to do it this way, was because what's going to happen is your body isn't going to rotate. And that's why I sort of prefer this one. Your body's not rotating, and you're able to isolate the pec a little bit more. But why? Because, your pec, the way that your pec is, it starts here and it goes up to the proximal third of your humerus. There's a groove there called the bicipital groove, or the bicep tendon goes up and attaches to the lateral lip of the bicipital groove, on the medial aspect of the lateral lip of the proximal third of the bicipital groove, in case you're wondering. It attaches there. So when you externally rotate, that's when you rotate your arm this way, you're actually stretching your pec more. So this, if you are going backward and then your shoulders back, you are stretching your pec more. So why, and I know this, so why am I doing this? Why am I bringing the arms forward if it in fact isn't stretching the pec as much? Because you're just going to get that little extra rotation. If you have your arm here and you externally rotate and pull it this way, it's actually you're just going to turn the humerus, the bone, and it's going to pull the pec back maybe a centimeter, a little farther. And why not? And the reason is because what I want to do is protect the rotator cuff. I want to take out some of those other muscles that are located in the rotator cuff. I want to take those out of the equation, okay? When you externally rotate your arm to 90 degrees, that's very close, and some people can't even get that far. That's very close to the end range of motion. So what happens is these rotator cuff muscles that are wrapped around, I took this out of the treasure chest for the kids who visit. The rotator cuff muscles sort of wrap around like this. It's going to be backwards, but this is the way I see it. Rotate around like this, and then you have the different muscles that sort of articulate around it. Maybe the deltoid on top, and the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres major, minor, and then the pec, and all these other muscles that sort of articulate around it. and hold it like that. Now what happens if you have those muscles and you're moving it around, this is sort of, it's obviously not accurate, like to scale, but this is kind of the idea. If you twist these muscles all the way around, I'm just going to twist it farther, and you twist it all the way to the end, what happens is that limits that movement in the shoulder. And this is a concept that I've incorporated into when I recommend exercises to people. So what I don't like is twisting your shoulders all the way, because these muscles will sort of get tensed up and tight along with the shoulder capsule all the way, and then moving your shoulders around. Because now, instead of it being nice and loose, what you're getting is something more like this, where it's tight. And again, this is just to illustrate a concept. It's tight, and you'll notice that it maybe you don't notice, but it's kind of harder to bend. So like if you take a towel, this thicker towel seems to work a lot better, and if you hold it like this, it bends very easily. But if you were to twist it, it becomes harder to bend. It creates more resistance, and it's going to sort of just be tighter. So exercises like the military press, shoulder press, where you're externally rotated all the way and going up and down, have been known in my circles to cause injury or exacerbate injury, right? So if you are doing a shoulder raises, doing lateral raises for your deltoids and isolating the deltoids a little bit differently is going to be better. Incline press is going to be okay if you want to hit maybe the front of the shoulder. But something like this, where you're twisting, there really isn't much use to it, like if you're trying to sculpt your body. But if you were training specifically for that movement, maybe you would do it. And if you are doing it, you're going to want to make sure you free up the movement of the muscles in your shoulder. That's going to put a lot of tension on subscapularis and teres major, among other things, as well as the pec. So what I'm trying to do is release that tension in the rotator cuff by moving you more into a neutral position, then bringing the shoulders back and together. Another exercise, while I'm on that topic of the exercises, because this isn't the only direction, but this way, if you're doing upward rows, which was one of my favorites, up this way, right? Now you're internally rotated and bringing your shoulders up. Again, you're creating tension in the opposite side, I guess, infraspinatus teres minor, maybe? I haven't thought about it that much. You're creating internal rotation all the way and moving it through. You have that potential for causing more friction in the shoulder, okay? So what I'm doing, the sort of decision I made when I created this stretch was to do something where I was taking that tension a little bit off the rotator cuff because it's safer. And then we're stepping through, keeping the body in alignment, and then allowing the chest to expand. And as your shoulder blades go back, you are bringing a little bit more of the pectoralis minor into it. That's okay. So you could see there was a trade-off that I made. All the other stretches, those are all ways that you are going to perhaps isolate the pectoralis major a little bit more, but I hope that explains this sort of rationale that I did in this book, Time to Stretch. That's sort of the rationale when I show people how to do it. And to be honest, I'll be honest with you, the reason I wrote this book, half the reason, is so that I could remember the stuff that I do. Because this was a couple of years ago, and sometimes you forget, and this allows me to have a little bit more continuity. Yeah, bye.